Hello everyone, Kate here from Keight Krafts, sharing with you another project for Hollow Tree Hobbies. Let's get started. So to kick things off, I have taken a piece of Nina's Solar White cardstock and I've cut it down off camera to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and we are going to use some washi tape to mask off the edges. This will give us a nice clean white border. So once I've got that situated, we are going to take the Heart Garden stencil by Fawn and we are going to do a little bit of ink blending. So once I've lined up where I want that to be, we'll use some magnets to hold it down, and we are going to go in with some Fawn Cilantro Ink. And I am using a blender stick brush to blend everything in today. Now, I will leave some of the alternatives to different types of brushes that you could use for this project, as well as some different types of Fawn washi tape that I just think is really cute to use. You don't necessarily have to use it on your project, but to use it to hold things down, I really enjoy having those happy colors when I'm creating. So here I'm just taking my sentiment and kind of eyeballing where everybody needs to be. And with that cilantro ink, we are going to go and fill in these little leaves for the stems of the flowers. Now what I'm doing is I am flicking upward. You can't really see, but you'll see in the next one. I'm flicking upward to create a darker gradient at the bottom of the little leaves to this flower, and I'm kind of blending out the top a little bit lighter than the bottom so you get a bit of dimension with it. So again, I'm bringing back my sentiment, and we're going to use some magnets to hold down, and you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of flicking upward to get a bit of a darker gradient at the bottom, and then softly blending that out once you get to the top, so it almost looks like there's a little bit of a light shadow catching it. And I think that's a lot of fun to do with the ink dyes. I haven't tried this technique with oxides. I think you could do it, I'm not sure, but because these are dye-based inks, they kind of soak into the paper, and I don't know, I like doing this little technique with it. So next we are going to use some of the Ballet Slipper and kind of do the same idea, except I'm going to be flicking downward at the top of the heart, and then we'll go ahead and bring in some of this grape jelly, and we will flip upward. So we get a gradient of the purple to the pink for the little heart flowers here, and then we'll carry on with the same idea on the other side. And I don't know what it is about mixing these two colors like this to get a bit of a gradient, but I just think it's so precious. It's so magical. I don't know, I like ink blending. It's a lot of fun when you can get a couple of different techniques in. And speaking of techniques, I thought it would be fun if I added a second stencil. So because those hearts flowers, you could move them any which way you'd like them because it's 3 different stencils that you'll be using in one stencil, if that makes sense. This is a 2-part stencil that I'm currently using, and this one is actually called the Heart Wreath stencil by Fawn. So I'm just going heavy-handed dark along the bottom, and then I'm just blending it up softer around the top and the edges there. And again, I'll do the same for this one. I'll go darker at the bottom and blend it out nice. This was a little bit harder to do with the gradient method with the fatter brush. I would probably recommend a smaller, thinner blending stick like this, and that way you could get more of the gradient dimension within the color. So next, the same technique that we did with the pink and purple hearts, we are going to do with some Moonstone. And again, we're going to be flicking down to towards the bottom of the heart. And we're going to do that to all of our little hearts here on the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and flick with the grape jelly going upward, and you'll see here in a minute. Now I end up shifting this part of the stencil down a little bit just to get everything lined up because I didn't really want the purple overlapping the green. I didn't really want to muddy it up some, so I decided that I was going to move this. So I forgot that little blue part there. I went back and gone ahead and did it, and then we're going to go in with those purple and just flicking upward ever so slightly so you get that blue-purple gradient. And I don't know what it is. I ended up I ended up making another card using the same technique with the 2-part heart wreath stencil and the heart garden stencil, and I ended up making another card and doing it a little bit different. So if you end up watching to the end, you'll get a little bit of a sneak peek of that card that I made. And I use the same technique for that, and yeah, you'll see in a minute. So here I'm just taking some of that ballet slippers and going into the little dots there, just to make sure that you get a little bit of extra interest. I'm going to darken up that purple a little bit just to make it a little bit darker, and then we're going to shift it down just slightly because I want everybody to line up perfectly, and I want to make sure that I get most of that heart into the card because I end up having to make this to where I end up pulling the tape up. You'll see her in a second. So again, I'm going in with that blue, and that tape is just bothering me. So I think the next card that I did, I shifted everything down a little bit so that way I wouldn't have that issue. So I'm just going to very, very carefully pull that tape up that I was using, and then we're going to go in again with that blue to darken that area up so you don't get the heart cut off and it looks a little bit more cohesive. So once I've gone ahead and done that, we'll go ahead again and we'll bring in that purple to create our gradient. And I don't know, I really enjoyed doing the gradient technique with these two different colors, and well, of course, this stencil. These stencils are a lot of fun. I enjoy mixing and matching the stencils that I have, even when they fit together. It really makes the background of a card or the foreground, whatever you use it for. In this case, I'm just creating a scene with the two stencils. And, considering Mother's Day is right around the corner, see, there you have it. So I'm going to put that tape back up at the corner there, or at the top, and we are going to grab our moonstone and our blending stick, and we are just going to go around the edges to create a bit of a gradient with the blue, or the moonstone. And I'm going heavy at the corners and then just kind of airbrushing it out a little bit to give it that light, cloudy, dreamy look. And I'm not going all the way around because I don't want to overlap on the green and muddy that green up. So that's what we're doing here. We're just creating a little bit of a gradient. And I've been saying gradient a lot. Yeah, because this is basically a gradient card, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in a thinner brush there just so I can work my way into the edges. And once we're done with that, we are going to go ahead and do a little peel and reveal. Now you want to be very careful when you're pulling up your washi tape that you don't fillet the paper. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up taking a layer or two off of the paper, and I end up taking a sand eraser. And so you want to make sure that you're very careful when you're pulling up your washi tape. And all I'm doing here is I'm taking my sand eraser and I'm just kind of flicking upward just to sand off any of the rough edges that may have torn. Now this didn't tear into the paper in half, so to speak, it just took up a couple of layers. So next I have gone ahead off camera and I have used the giant Happy Mother's Day die. And this die is a lot of fun because it is a sentiment in and of itself, and I like to take a couple of die cuts out of a white 110-pound cardstock and layer them up. And because I don't have the coordinating color for the paper that I want to use, I am just going ahead and taking some of this Manatee Ink by Fawn and creating my own custom color paper. And it's just a matter of ink blending the amount of ink that you want onto your paper so that way you have a cardstock that matches. And this one isn't going to be perfect with the blending because you're not going to see all of this. This is going to be my shadow layer. So I already gone ahead and glued together two of my 110-pound cardstock cutouts, and then I'm going to go ahead and line everything up with those two and glue that darker color together onto it. And I'm going to make sure everybody's nice and mashed down and lined up. Now you could at this point go in with a smaller detail brush and get the edges so you don't see the white, but we're going to leave it as is just to give it a little bit of interest. So with our cutout of the flower market paper in the giant Happy Mother's Day die cut, we are going to go around the back with some glue and we are going to offset this. And by offsetting, I mean just gluing it down and then just shifting it slightly to one direction. So we've got this down lined up kind of, and then I'm just shifting it just slightly, you see here, just so you get that little bit of a gray shadow behind it. And this just makes it pop a little bit more. You don't need to do this, but this is something that I like to do. And this is nice and firm and nice and sturdy. And I just love the effect that this gives. So while we're in the home stretch of things, I probably should take a moment to mention that if you are interested in any products that I've used in today's video, I will have a bunch of links in the description box below for you to check out. Everything over on the Hollow Tree Hobbies website. Lots to look at, not just Lawn Fawn. And if you haven't yet, we also have a Instagram page as well as a Facebook page where we post quite a bit about what's going on and what projects we're doing. And if you haven't yet, maybe subscribe to the Hollow Tree Hobbies channel, as I will be putting out more content in the weeks to come. So with that being said, I am going to give that a good mash down, and then we are going to take our little border here. I've already cut out the happy, you can see, and I didn't want to waste the paper, so I thought I would use it kind of as a little frame to our project. So I'm just going around with some glue. I'm going to stand above my project so I can line up those corners the best that I possibly can. And give that a good mash down. Make sure that everything's where it needs to be. And then we are going to write Hollow Tree Hobbies onto our card base in glue, just because this is fun to do. You don't have to do that. And we're going to go around the corners and the edges here with some glue so we've got some decent adhesion. And then we are going to open up our card base to make sure that I don't glue this on upside down. Line everybody up as best as we can, and then we will give that a good mash down. And here you have my finished card. I really hope that you enjoyed today's project using 2 stencils. I had a lot of fun putting this one together, so much so here is my promised picture of my other card. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me today. Take care.